Hello, we are the team I Like the Way You Are. My name is Yuchen Zhang, and these are my teammates Albert, Henry, Jonathan, and Hao Tian. In our study, we focused on the dataset US18 to illustrate and discuss how the prevalence of illicit drug use varies across certain demographic metrics. We define the prevalence of illicit drug use as the proportion of participants who have ever used the drugs without the doctor's instructions. To start with, some of our brief data transformation includes transforming the sex variable to a scale from 0 to 1 and combining all levels from 2 to 5 in DASCAD as some degree of drug abuse as to achieve a roughly more balanced dataset. One of the methods we used is decision tree. The X or predictor variables included family income, education, age, and sex, and target variable, of course, DASCAD. By splitting the data into different subsets multiple times, we achieve a precise enough model that predicts whether someone is likely to abuse drugs at a certain stage of his or her life. So for instance, when we examine the lower left box, we can see that a person who is younger than 26.5 years old, who is a woman that receives less education, is not likely to abuse drugs.
Pictured here is a map of the drug abuse percentage for each state. The criteria that I use to classify a drug abuser is that if the respondent has both used this drug and has used it without a doctor's prescription. Moreover, if we hover the cursor over the states, we can see the calculated percentage of the drug abusers in a particular state. Unfortunately, since this data set is a convenience sample and not randomized, the data collected is not representative of each state. Therefore, it is difficult to produce a meaningful conclusion. However, if better sampling techniques were used, this visualization would be very helpful in determining the differences in drug abuser percentage between the states, and we could use the geographic information from the map to identify underlying causes for these differences.
Additionally, we made an animation that displays how the prevalence of drug use changes across different ages. We do see that they all share the similar trends as they all reach their highest between 20 and 35 and then decline afterwards. Still, minor differences exist as, first of all, you can see that opioid is by far the most popular one, whereas the other three drug groups share the same level of prevalency. And secondly, the peak times in these drug groups are actually different. For stimulant, it reaches peak in the early 20s, whereas for GABA, it reaches peak in the early 30s. So that difference can have implications on the strategies and methods we use to address these drug use problems as the demographics are actually different.
We also looked for social and psychological insight from this data set. We plot the percentage of people felt they have neglected their family and people who regretted their drug use and try to see how these two percentages change while aging. Higher the value here means a higher percentage of participants said yes to the respective questions on the questionnaire. Interestingly, percentage of participants said yes to these two questions seem to be correlated. For both the animation and my plots, we realized that the number of elders have age above 85 is quite small. But even if you ignore those people, the plot still shows the two downward trends for people from age 30 to 70. Lastly, among drug users, we see there are more males answered yes to have neglected their family because of the use of drugs. Social and psychological applications can be further derived from this data set. If random sampling has been done when collecting this survey, our geographic plots will be more significant and meaningful. Thank you so much for listening.